All right, we started talking about shanks in class. If you have a pump, you're going to need a shank if you're actually going to finish the shoe. It's not required for the grade, but I have a metal shank here that I just took off of another shoe, so this is possible to use. The school has these that are fiberglass, but they cannot be molded. So this is only going to be good use for lower shoes or Oxfords. So if you can rip a metal one out of the existing ones, that's fine. Or use some of the existing molded midsoles with the shanks already in them. If you have one that's too big, which is normal, you can shape them yourself. So what I usually do is kind of line this up. Okay, once it's lined up, I'm gonna mark this to where I want to cut this off at. Okay, and I'm gonna cut it off here because on a heel, the heel would usually be sitting here and taking up this area, and you need the shank to come underneath the heel and stop before the ball here. So it has to sit right in this area. So I'll kind of trace this out so you'll get an idea if you're looking to try to do your own. So ideally the shank would be sitting right in this area. Okay, if you're gonna wanna alter a shank by yourself, you're probably gonna need a Dremel, and you'll have the shank. If you get one of these cutting discs, these are pretty good. And you wanna be careful with this. So I have safety glasses on, always wanna have safety glasses on when you're doing this. Turn the Dremel. So I'm not cutting through this all at once. Kind of just taking my time and cutting through it slowly. So once I get all the way through this, I'll start the video again. Okay, so once you get all the way through that, be careful, it's probably gonna be hot, but then you can have a shank the size that you want it, and then what you're gonna do is bend it. You can see that here, once we have this here, this shank is still not gonna be fitting the heel right. You can see a gap in here, so what we're gonna do is bend that shape. And how we're gonna do that is with a hammer, and you're gonna kind of start to bend this area down. If you have a vise, you can clamp it in a vise. Clamp one end of this in a vise and start bending down this way so that you can shape it. All right, so you can see by sticking it in a vise, sticking one end in a vise and pulling on this side and bending the shank, I've curved it a bit more. All right, and it's gonna fit my last the way that I want to. So if you ever have to alter a shank, that's how you can do it. And you can see that now there's no gap between the shank and the board. All right, so after this, pretty simple. If you are gonna use a shank, what you would do is cut this shape, the shape from here, across the ball, around. You would cut another shape of Texon board exactly like this. Take your shank, glue it into place here, and glue that second piece of Texon board on top of this one to secure it and cover the shank. All right, so I'm gonna show you how to do that. All right, so now that I have cut out another piece of Texon board, ideally this would be the thickest one you can find, or if there's a dark brown or a red one that's much thicker and harder, that's called hardboard or red board, and you would use that to put on top of here. If you look at any of the pre-molded midsoles that they have in the school, it'll have a hard brown one or a hard red one here used for that. However, we don't have that right now, so just so you understand, this is what you're gonna do. I put Rhenia on this side and Rhenia on this side. I've also put Rhenia on both sides of my shank. I'm gonna put a little bit of heat just to get it nice and tacky. And I'm gonna nail my insole board to the bottom here, and then I'm gonna combine this together. All right, just showing you one other part. because I have a metal plate here on this last, okay, I can't just nail into the areas that I did before because I'm going to put the shank here, and I don't want to put the shank over top of my nails. That would trap the nails inside, so I'm not going to do that. So this is a little trick. You can nail a little bit here above the feather line, the feather edge line. You can nail into the side of the last and bend the nail over to hold the insole board on while you put this all together. Okay, so you can see this one's just nailed but not bent over. So I nailed it there, and I'm just going to bend the nail head over, and then that's going to hold this on for me while I can work. All right, taking my shank, putting this on. Okay. So I've got my shank put on here, and then I'm going to put my piece on top of it. Here, going to press the sides, and then I'm going to hammer it. So if you ever have to make your own, and you can kind of see that the shank is here in between the two, kind of causing a rise there, that's okay. And now you're ready to do the lasting process as we did before.